What's going up, YouTube? Welcome to another edition of Tips on the Beat with D.Royul, where I, D.Royul, will be making a beat. And I'm going to give you 5 insights into how I made it to hopefully give you some fresh new insight into how you create music in your own life. Guys, it has been forever. Almost 2 years since I made a brand new episode of this, and even though it's under the current circumstances of being quarantined and the very horrible pandemic that's happening in our country, I'm so excited to be able to record another one of these videos. Now, for those who don't remember, I currently work at an organization called New City Kids, where I serve as the music director for the Paterson, New Jersey site. And what we do is we create after-school centers in urban neighborhoods where we teach music, both kids and teens, hire teenagers from the high schools in the area. But my staff are made of teenagers. Now, the great part of my job is I get to make raps and create brand new songs and such. And one that we, as an organization, got reached out to by the state of New Jersey was to make one for the 2020 census. Now, if you haven't seen the video, I'm going to pause for 7 seconds to let you go and see it. I'm going to put it in the top right-hand corner of this video, or if you're not watching it on YouTube, I'm going to put it in the description below. If you're watching it somewhere, you can click it, or even if you're on Instagram watching this, go to YouTube, search New City Kids Census 2020. I'll give you 7 seconds, come right back. You back? That was pretty cool, wasn't it? I mean, you know, I'm not one to say toot your own horn, but I also do believe in believing in yourself when God has given you a gift. And, you know, I'm like, you know what? I'm not bad at this whole songwriting thing now, am I? I got to write the verse. A co-worker of mine / fellow worship leader, part of the worship leader team at my church, at Christ Church, Annie Joseph, she wrote the chorus. And another one of our co-workers who is very good with writing in Spanish, she wrote it and translated the parts of the first verse into the second verse. So what I wanted to do was talk about how this beat was made, because it was very unorthodox in some of the other ways I might have said in the past 15 episodes of this channel. So I've been itching to say this for at least 2 years, but let's see how it all came together. All right, so tip number 1 is go through the sounds that you have. If you have Logic, Reason, Pro Tools, or you've downloaded a whole bunch of drum kits online, they're going to come with a lot of sounds. And sure, you're looking for a piano, you're looking for a bass guitar, drum set, a synth sound, sure. But go outside of that. Look in your effects folders, see what you got, scroll through, and see what grabs your ear. That's exactly what I did for this first sound. So what you see here is I've got Ultrabeat open in Logic, which is one of the instruments that allows you to drag and drop samples in. So what I did was I was in one of my effects tabs, and I was just scrolling through, listening to what I could hear. And I was scrolling through just like this. And I came across that sound. And I said, huh, that's weird. What's that? Plugged that in, plugged it in, and then started messing around with it, which actually, once we get to number 2, I'll explain more. Tip number 2, pitch shifting to adjust your sounds. Now, that second sound you heard, I also found by going through my sounds and just finding something. I said, oh, that's pretty cool. And in my mind, I said, I wish it could go up and down, because the sound by itself does not. So I put it in Ultrabeat and I adjusted the pitch of 3 of the separate notes so it moves the da-da-da-da. And what that is that they each are given a musical note. You know, the piano has A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and it's got sharps and flats and stuff. But what that does is if you treat the sound like that, you can move it up and down like it is a note on the piano, so it can sound musically appealing, right? It's really, I called it an oink or a quack. That oink goes dun 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 dun. So I shifted the tone of that quack oink down so it actually sounds like it's moving. So these are non-musical notes. These are not instruments, but we're treating them as if they are. So that's when you're looking at sounds, you're looking at the effects, you're thinking of it, if I'm treating this like an instrument, what can I do to it to make it do what I want it to? Tip number 3, use what I call the mirror move to create very special parts in your song. Now what that means is, if you've ever seen a mirror reflection of something, it's the other way, right? So if you have a beat pattern or a tempo pattern, what I'm saying is create one that goes this way, then reverse it, and let that be your full 4-bar or 8 count of whatever instrument you're using for this idea. Now what I'm talking about here is I have a droplet lead that has 4 different components to it. Really 3, but it's broken into 4 segments, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if you see what I'm talking about by the mirror, if we were to actually draw a line from right here down the middle and fold it onto each other, it would make a complete mirror image, because the first sounds like this. And so does this last one. The second one and the 7th one, they sound exactly the same as well. And if you notice, the 3rd and the 6th, they've got 3 notes here and 3 notes here. So that's what I mean by mirroring. I went up the ladder this way and down the ladder that way. Tip number 4, draw out the tension with suspended dissonance. Now, in some past videos, I've talked about what dissonance is. It's when chords don't sound pretty, and it doesn't mean they don't sound happy, but it sounds like something's a little off. And it's not necessarily that they're off, but it's that it's a musical structure of a chord to bring you back to a nice chord. So it's that tension that draws a feeling out of us that sometimes people can't explain, but that's really what's going on. And a lot of these chords can be outside of the regular major or minor, or it can be sevenths, meaning there's a fourth note added to it. I got a whole bunch of those kind of chords. If you rewind and watch back, there are definitely some chords where I'm using 3 fingers. Then there's some where I'm using 4. Then there's some where I'm using 5 even. And that kind of structure, the way I did the chorus and another portion of the verse, where I did that on purpose to draw out a feeling that was like, whoa, what's going on? Oh man. And then when it releases, you get a feeling of, oh, that's better, a feeling of relief. And though it's a lot about feeling, the way you structure those kinds of chords, it's what builds that push and pull between nice consonant and dissonant, nice and tension. And what that does in music, it just builds that it builds something up in you. And sometimes you can't always just describe it, but it feels good when you hear it, and it makes you want to go back and go, oh, play that again. Tip number 5, cultural fusion can shift the track in a really great way. Now, the reason we did this is, as you saw, verse 2 is in Spanish, right? We wanted to reach a community that does not always get the correct representation, and the fact that there are so many people here in both of our communities of where New City Kids is, who some of their family does not speak English. So we wanted to make sure we could reach that community. Now, in Latinx cultures, communities, there's a lot of different rhythms. You got cumbia, you got bachata, merengue, salsa, and the fact of the matter is I had to figure out which one fit with the tempo that we were working with. So I was like, okay, reggaeton, boom, it works, but in the tempo that it usually isn't going to work with the song that I was making. So I sped it up a bit so that it actually fit with the track. It's not the exact same feel, but of all the things I was looking at, I felt that this worked the best, and changing the song completely up just for the second verse would have messed with the flow a bit. So that's once again going back to your creativity, seeing what you're trying to convey, the information you're trying to bring forth, and the emotion you're trying to bring forth at the exact same time, and collectively making the best decision for what would be best for the song. And there you have it. Another episode of Tips on the Beat is in the books. Now let's go over the 5 things I talked about to refresh your memory. Number 1, go through your sounds. You don't want to just continue to use the sounds in your sound bank that you always use all the time, because you might get stuck in a rut. So just go through them. You might hear something that catches your ear. Number 2, pitch shifting. That's a great idea to use. I came across the sound and I shifted the pitch so that it did exactly what I wanted to do. Many of these digital audio workstations, DAWs, have the ability to do so. So don't be afraid to mess around with it and try to shape it into doing exactly what you might be hearing in your mind. Number 3, I held up number 2, that's fine. Number 3, use the mirror move to create a little bit more diversity in your track. It's the concept of going one way and then going the other way back. What it does is it helps the listener get, I won't say confused, but it doesn't let them follow along in a very predictable way. And since something isn't predictable, it draws the person back to it in different ways that they may not understand why yet. Number 4, draw out the tension with suspended dissonance. Now, those types of chords, which are called diminished or even augmented, sometimes sustained, if you use them consistently, it creates a mood that people don't necessarily understand. In music, making people feel a certain way where they don't understand it right away, it's what brings people back. And so it makes them want to hear it again, and they're feeling that emotion over and over again, and it continues to pique their interest. And that kind of thing in music is what anyone who makes music wants to actually do. And number 5, cultural fusion. You have no idea what could come about when you try to merge musical cultures. And it's not to say no one's ever done it before. because many people have done it. It's been pretty successful. So you want to go and look into this and saying, what are you trying to create? And by bringing another musical culture or a historical sound to what you're doing, what could you bring to it? Could it be the percussion? Could it be the melody? Could it be the instruments? Play around with it and see what kind of new things you come about when you do this. So thank you so much for watching. Remember, like and subscribe to this channel if you're enjoying what you're seeing. And don't be afraid to go back and watch some of the previous episodes. I know it's been about 2 years and they might not be the most fresh, but I still like watching some of them. If you're interested in any of those beats, make sure to email the email in the description below. There are many different prices varying from ones that have tags, don't, waves, MP3s, trackouts, and the like. And remember, creativity has no boundaries. Use your God-given gifts and talents to create something fresh today. But as always, make sure you're having fun while you're doing it. See you next time.